Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this. What is today? The 17th, I want to say. 17th day. No, 14th. I'm rushing things. 14th day of November, 2022. Going to talk about obviously Dallas doing same old Dallas things with the Cowboys. I don't understand the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting a different result. Also, got a lot of good feedback. I want to thank everybody for the feedback on the Mike Westhoff interview there last week here on the Sports Scope, and I'll replay it there on my. You can also check out Sports Scope on Roku TV Wednesdays 3 p.m. Central Time under the Northeast Streaming Sports channel there, folks. Also, going to go over the Raiders debacle. Mark Davis trying to save face. Another big win for Tampa. Also, Wednesday, I'll have a good friend of mine, an old friend, Andre Gibson. I want to make sure I got Andre's last name right. Andre Gibson. This guy I used to work with at my other job years ago, about 10 years ago. Been my friend on Facebook for several years. He's retired. He's from here in the Nashville area. Really well versed, really good sense of humor, funny. This guy is going to be amazing. He is going to be absolutely hilarious. Do not miss 705 Sports Scope. Do not miss 705 Sports Scope on Wednesday. I'm going to have a really good guest in. This guy's got a magnetic personality, really funny, good storyteller. Andre Gibson, former co-worker, guy worked for the state. I'm going to get a little bit of his background. He's a big Boston Celtics fan. I'm going to get his take on this Ime Udoka situation here and Brooklyn Nets. And we'll talk about his Super Bowl bubble. And if all works, I may bring him on as a regular on Wednesdays and perhaps Wednesday or Thursday. I just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that before I forget to make my announcements, okay? All righty then. I used to play this game. I don't play it now, but maybe I'll get back into it. Playing Madden. I play NFL 2K, the video games, and also actual coaches, former coaches, current coaches in the NFL. And they had a really good saying. And this really goes over well with the Minnesota Buffalo game. And the old saying is, some days you get the bear, and some days the bear gets you. And I want to say, Pickles, it was the former coach of the Baltimore Ravens that coached the 2000 Ravens. Now, he later got fired. He's on a lot of, does a lot of TV stuff here and there. But he used to have that saying, some days you get the bear and some days the bear gets you. And in the season with the Minnesota Vikings, some seasons you get the bear this season. And some seasons the bear gets you. Last season with this Minnesota Viking team. There's a very funny saying, but the truth of it is, it's a lot of truth in the NFL. Okay, Minnesota Vikings last year, a team I picked, and of course all these shows are recorded. You all know this. I picked to win the NFC North. I like the addition of guys like Patrick Peterson. I just like he was an older player. He was in his 30s, coming there helping out at the cornerback position there. And I just like the way they were playing defensively coming in. I like the bringing back their zone block and running scheme. And Brian says, and that's why I didn't take them this year, Brian. That's why I didn't take Minnesota this year, because I thought that the defense wouldn't be as tight as it was under Mike Zimmer. But the truth of the matter is that team was disappointing last year. And their defense ranked about 22nd when it should have been around a top 10. But it wasn't quite as good, Brian, as it was in 2017 when they made the Super Bowl when Anthony Barr was in his prime, when Harrison Smith was in his prime. All those players there with that pass rush. Xavier Rhodes was in his prime. Now he's being replaced by Pete. So this is the team I thought that we have last year, you know. And the truth of the matter, last year, this team, I thought they outplayed Cincinnati in week 1 last year, but they lost to Cincinnati in overtime. Cincinnati got the bear last year, right? And then you look at week 2, they go to Arizona. Man, if you're a professional kicker in the NFL last year, you can't miss a 37-yard field goal. You can, especially in a controlled environment like an Arizona, but they missed a 30. So they were 0-2 last year to start the season. Okay. They lost a lot of one-score games. They lost a one-score game to Cleveland last year. They lost in overtime at Baltimore last year, one-score game against Dallas last year. And this year they won one-score game against Detroit, New Orleans, Chicago, Miami. These are ones, so they're getting the bear this year, okay? Washington. I mean, Washington had them beat for 3.5 quarters. And they get a key interception. Late in the game last week, not Sunday, but the Sunday before that against Washington, the Commanders. Was it Taylor Heineke threw ill-advised pass, picked that ball off. They go all the way. They're inside the 50. I want to say it was Harrison Smith, one of those ball-hawking defensive backs, get it all the way down in there. Of course, they run it in. They win the game. They stole that Commanders game. Stole your deal with Sosa, right? That's what Mr. Lopez said to Tony Montana in the hit movie Scarface. You stole your deal with Sosa. So they stole that win. They go back to Minnesota, and then they go to Buffalo. And Buffalo's leading these guys by 17 points at home. Now, I know that Josh Allen was hurt, and I'm going to get to that. I got a lot to say about that. And they lost. They got a fumble back when basically you're getting close to knee time. Remember, they got the big fourth down stop there. Buffalo does. Get the 4th and goal stop there. And you fumble. You got one of the biggest, toughest quarterbacks in the league who's got a bad elbow, which was just coaching on the other side, and you fumble a quarterback sneak, and then they get the ball back, and then they score, and of course we know what happens. They won the game in overtime, so they got the bear this year, and now this team has got a one-loss team, and you got to ask yourself, you got Justin Jefferson's living up to the preseason hype. He's playing like the best receiver in the league today, right now. He had almost 200 yards. But Kevin O'Connell, we're all talking about Brian DeBall up in New York. And we're talking about all these other coaches. Mike Vrabel's name's been brought up to get Coach of the Year again. Are you kidding me? But I've been reading that as well. But Kevin O'Connell, this team's a one-loss team, folks. They're one. I don't think they even made the playoffs last year. And so you look at that. This is a number 2 seed. They're a number 2 seed, not even being in the playoffs. This guy's 37 years old, very close to the age of a Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins gets another big road win. So the stigma of him not getting good road wins, that's fading. And now they haven't played a big prime time game yet to get a win yet. That was his other big downfall there. But Justin Jefferson, these guys are playing really well. Cook's running the ball well. They've got TJ Hockenson on that team. Stole that deal from Detroit, which again, the optics look bad for Detroit. All right. He goes to a winning team. He gets 90 yards. His first game, TJ Hockenson. And he's a former Pro Bowler. This guy's in his 20s, still in his prime. And that's bad optics for the organizations. He's going to come back. First of all, it looks like they're running off with the NFC North. They are running off with this thing, you know. So it was a good win, a really good win for Minnesota. They feel a little flaky this year. They kind of feel like Arizona last year. They feel a little bit fraudulent because of Kirk Cousins. But, hey, man, you got to give this coach the credit when it's due. They're running the ball. They're stopping the run. They've got a playmaking secondary between Harrison Smith and Peterson. Zadarius Smith, they got him from Green Bay because Aaron Rodgers wanted all the money, right? So they got another pass rusher here. It's coming together for them. And you're in a year where the NFC as a whole is down. The NFL is not really – there's not really a lot of good quarterback play in the league as a whole. Aaron Rodgers on the back end of his career. Brady's on the back end of his career. Drew Brees is just he retired. Phillip Rivers retired. Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, retired. Okay, so now you've got this whole influx of new quarterbacks here. You got guys like average guys, in my opinion. Jalen Hurts, who's playing tonight. I do think they're going to win tonight, but I don't know if they're going to cover 12.5 points. I don't think Jalen Hurts is an all-world guy. But if you got a good enough team around a guy, competent quarterback, a guy that's got leadership, the team respects the heck out of him, works his rear end off, you're gonna have something there. So you got guys like Hurts, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, players like that. Even Russell Wilson seems like his better days are behind him. So we're in that kind of what do you call it? I guess we're in a in-between period here between out with the old, in with the new. Now, Allen and Patrick Mahomes, they're two young, solid quarterbacks. I think they're going to have a bright future. But let's go back to Buffalo, Minnesota. It was a crazy game. I said on this program, that was one of the top 5 we were talking about. Buffalo should have won it. They gave it away. But the flip side is Josh Allen, bad elbow, game day decision. He outrushed the entire running back core. Again, the running backs he had 87 yards. The running backs led by Devin Singletary, 69 yards. Okay. You go out here and you get a left guard here out of Tennessee. You get this left guard here out of Tennessee to run the football to help him run the football with Singletary is because it was cold. Your quarterback's not 100%. Not even 100%. He's like 60, 50%, right? You got a quarterback that is playing at that level, but he's still really athletic, strong, willpower. Kind of reminds me of a Steve McNair. I'm out of Nashville type of guy. But he's your leading rusher. You're up 30-17 in the fourth quarter, you know. And by the way, did I mention that they're 0-4 in overtime games with Josh Allen? And you say, "Wow, it looks great." I think they could, had the best win the Super Bowl, and he could win the MVP. Yeah, I still believe that. But my thing is, they're not running the football. So this goes back again to Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott has been this coach since 2017. So what does it matter? That's 5 years. Okay. He's had this all-world quarterback who they gave a ton of money to, over 150 guaranteed. Josh Allen, howitzer for an arm, run like the wind blows, looks like a young John Elway, and now they're not even in first place in their division, and they're 0-4 in overtime games. And, Colin Cowherd says it's the Mike Tyson, if they don't beat you early, if you go back and forth with them, and then their defense, they had injuries on their defense. But Pickle says their defense collapsed. Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, and honestly can't believe he played with that injury. Yeah, Brian says that. Brett Favre's played with elbow injuries before. Brett Favre's also thrown four interceptions games. Favre was an Iron Man. He had that Iron Man streak going for a while. But I'll put this on McDermott again. It's your job to make sure you guys are running the football. And quite frankly, if you're seeing that he's turning the ball over in the second half, they only had 2 field goals in the second half. If that elbow's bothering him, it obviously is. Pull him, put Casey. That's why you pay Casey Keenum that money. Said the same thing last year about the same guy, Casey Keenum, with Cleveland. Okay, you've got all those receivers there. All right, Dawson Knox, really solid there. 2 decent running backs. Went out and got another running back, Himes, and even using the Cook brother, who played against his brother, ironically. And then you've got Singletary, still your leading rusher, and you're still wanting him to just do everything. Josh, do it all. Do it all with that bad elbow. And even though he had a fair game, you could tell his throw was off. You can tell it was bothering him. And he fumbled that ball because he can't put all that pressure on the football when he's rushing. So that's all on Sean McDermott. It's his job to step over everybody and say, no, Josh, you're not going to quarterback sneak it. I see what you've done in the second half. Don't tell me that elbow's not bothering you. It's bothering you. And we got to win this game, man. We got to win this game. Look how good the Jets are playing. The Jets just beat you last week. Okay? Miami Dolphins have won a few weeks ago. They're still winning. Now they're not even in first place anymore. Okay? That's all on McDermott. That's all. And again, going back to the other team, Mike Zimmer. All those close games. He's a defensive coach. You know, you're probably going to have to get that zone blocking running. And that this guy, he's got a lot of comparisons to John Elway. What was John Elway's biggest problems with Reeves, Pickles, and all those other coaches? He'd get them to the Super Bowl, did the drive. They didn't have a solid running game. They did not have a solid running game. What happened when they got Mike Shanahan? They got the zone blocking running. They got two Super Bowls to show for it. This is an all-world guy. You hate to see a player of this caliber on an organization who's got 4 Super Bowl losses, 1 heartbreaker in 1990 with the Giants, 1 heartbreaker, you know, but getting there 4 straight times, and then you couldn't get a quarterback after Jim Kelly. Now you finally got that quarterback, and now you're wearing him out. He's getting hurt because he's asked to do too much, and they don't have any patience with the running game, so they give it up, and now he's hurt again, and now you're starting to lose games. But it's one of those things where you thought, well, maybe it's Brian the ball. You know, well, he's with the Giants now. The Giants are running the football. Saquon Barkley had his day, right? And so now you've got Ken Dorsey here, and it is what it is, you know. And there's still a lot of season to go, but they still should. I mean, if you're paying Roger Saffold, that kind of money, left guard there out of Tennessee, $10 million a year. You're paying that guy $10 million a year. It's quite a bit of money for a guy in his 30s that's a guard, and you're still not utilizing him. It's like, okay, we can't run. Let's put our hands up. But that, I'm telling you guys, he's the shoe to drop. And I don't need to sound like I'm a broken record, but Sean McDermott is the next shoe to drop as far as that big surprise firing. If this team don't get it together, get to the Super Bowl, win it, it's McDermott. And it's playing this guy, and that's my biggest beef is that fumble. It's that fumble. You know he's involved in the play calling. If he's not involved in the play calling, he's supposed to overstep that and say, do not have him doing a quarterback sneak with that injury. We have this game on ice. All you have to do, get out of the end zone, take a few knees, call it a day. And they couldn't do that. And that was so irritating. Man, if I'm a Buffalo fan, I'm just rip-roaringly, really at odds with myself, okay? Speaking of idiotic, okay, so another big game. Dallas, same situation. Same situation. Dallas, let me see here. So Dallas is up 20. I had to make sure that this was right because I lost $95 on an in-game. Lost $95. It was a $5 bet, but I had a $95 in-game parlay win. Aaron Jones any touchdown, CeeDee Lamb anytime touchdown, Tony Pollard anytime touchdown. Check, check, check. And only thing I need was for Tony Pollard over 50 yards. Got that, check. Only thing I need was for Dallas to win on the money line. Really annoying. Really, really frustrating. So you're up 28-14. You're off a bye week, which means that this is a fact. This is not my opinion. Running backs are more explosive off bye weeks. Ask any of them. Any of them from now to the history of the game. They're more explosive. And they find their rhythm as a game. Sometimes they're a little rusty. I thought Saquon Barkley was a little rusty early, but he started finding his rhythm as the game went along up in Houston, playing against Houston, and he got better and better and better. But Pollard, lead guy, got this guy Davis. Zeke Elliott was out, right? You're up 28-14, all right? Check out this score. Check out this stat here when Dallas is up that kind of lead. And I'll tell you why. I feel like they do this stuff on purpose, but it's the same result every time. Before Sunday, Dallas was 195-0 when entering the fourth quarter with a 14-point lead. Before Sunday, Dallas was 109, and most of that was from running that rock. Running that rock. Now they got pass happy. You stop the clock when you had to do an incomplete, and you give Aaron Rodgers another shot. You give Aaron Rodgers another shot. You know, the weather's cold. It's perfect for physical football. Perfect up there in Green Bay. But now they're 195-1 because they wanted to get cute. They always want to get cute. That's the Dallas's motto. That's the same problem they had last year. Check out this stat. Even though Packers are around 10, remember Packers, their best pass rush, Rasheed Gary's out for the season. This guy Douglas, what's his name? Rasheed Douglas, second cornerback. He was out of this game. They had two linebackers that were out in this game. They had two starting linebackers out in this game. Not to mention Gary, their pass rusher. Not to mention the number 2 cornerback. And every time I go to that game, when I'm going back and forth, Dak Prescott's in the shotgun. Dak Prescott is in the shotgun, and he's throwing 46 times to 27 running. Now, why are you doing that? Well, you're taking away. No, you're doing that because Dallas wants to showcase. I don't know if this is probably coming down from Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy, to the Keelan Moore, the offensive coordinator, all the way down to Dak Prescott. I don't know. But I do know it looks like you're trying to show off and showcase your offense, the flash of the wide receivers, good for the brand, all that jazz. And you get in there, you get finesse with the lead. Who throws the ball from the shotgun at a first down with a 14-point lead? But Dallas. You know, who does that? Jalen Hurts and company, fast start. Yep, that's how they do, man. So it's his throwing. Again, 40. He threw 46 to 27. Now, I can understand if they were down by 14 coming into the fourth quarter. That makes sense, right? That makes sense. They want to showcase Dak. And then you've got Jerry Jones on radio stations talking about they want Odell Beckham during the commercial break, right? Or during the week on his radio show. We want Odell Beckham. Why? You've got Gallup. You got CeeDee Lamb. Okay. Noah Brown's, he showed to be a pretty good, solid player there with this team. You know, you got with Dalton Schultz back, Tony Pollard, Davis. This guy Davis is not a bad running back there. What else do you need? You know, what else do you need? Let's just add some more to it. But I started looking at some of the games they've won this year. Okay, even with Cooper Rush here, Cincinnati, they threw 31 times. They threw 16 times, to 30 times. And the Bears win 24 runs to 27 pass. That's 50-50, right? So it's either 31 to 27 or it's close to 50-50 when you win. And all these games are either close or Dallas is slightly up. So why are you throwing 40? That's practically double. Why are you throwing 40 times if you're not just trying to show off? And, of course, that's what you got you beat. That's what you got. This is the same problem with the Raider game last year. This time last year, we were 2 weeks out of Thanksgiving, Brian. Said a few weeks ago, 50 times a game. A few weeks ago. If he throws that many times, they should run that many times. You've got backup running backs here. Zeke's going to come back at some point, but they lose every time, man. They lose every time. And I think it's Jerry's pushing this. Jerry Jones pushing this. But it seems to be a thing. It's not something like you're going against Baltimore where you can't run the ball. You know, and that is not the case. They could run. Anybody can run on the Raiders. Anybody can run on the Raiders. We saw that yesterday. The Raiders, but the same thing with the Raiders last year in the Raiders game. So it's not just it's because they're so good at run defense. It's because they're too flashy, you know. And I don't know if it's McCartney or Jerry Jones or a little bit of both. But I'll say this. I mean, now we just saw that the Eagles scored 7-0. They're 3 games back now. And I think they're built to beat. I feel like that they're built to beat this team. They're built to beat. They could beat that Eagles team if they didn't make so many mistakes. But it just really annoys me because this team they have a Super Bowl defense. They have a Super Bowl defense on that team, and they're letting it go to waste. And, you got Jerry Jones. He's 80 years old, and maybe he's pushing for that. But those are when you got Dak throwing that many times, but it's not. And even the fact that you're throwing out of a shotgun and you're running out of that's why I've been saying about Arizona last year. I just don't understand teams that run the ball out. You can't get any momentum out of your running back. Your running back sitting in one place here, run the ball, you go. You know, it's the most annoying thing in pro football right now is running the football out of the shotgun, letting your running back not get in. If one person missed their block, you're out of luck. One person. So they gave their game away. They gave a game away. Buffalo gave their game away. Washington gave their game away to Minnesota last week. Totally gave that game away. It's one thing if you take it. It's another thing if you give it away. I'll be right back, guys. We'll get on the Raiders here in just a second. I'll be back in about a minute and 19 seconds. Hello, Sports Scope followers. After 5 years of doing this program once a week, balancing a 60-hour work week job, I've decided to do the program 5 days a week, 1 hour a night, taking a significant pay cut. So I've started a Patreon page, which is Patreon, Patreon/SportsScope, spelled the same way at the bottom of the screen you see there. For $5 a month, 17 cents a day, you can help support the program. You ask yourself, why SportsScope? Well, I bring in such big names such as Al Borges, former Auburn offensive coordinator, and I cover the big news in sports that the corporate media will not cover. If you want to contribute more than $5 a month, you can go use the Cash App. The cash tag is Sports Scope, again, spelled the same way. Or you can go to the Zelle app, sportscope@gmail.com. SportsScope has about 5,000 followers and growing. If you want to advertise on the program, you can email me. The word is SportsScope, spelled the same way again, @gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the program. Righty then, now I'm back here live here, and Fields will eventually get hurt running about. Yeah, Justin Fields, and that's another thing. This guy has ran over 300 yards in 2 games. And I like Justin Fields, man. He really is a heck of an athlete. But guess what? They're 0-2. They're 0-2. He's a great fantasy player. That's another one I lost a parlay on. You know, bad weekend. Bad. That's why I'm a little bit more irritated than others. Then Pickle says, house school coach beats the Raiders. Yeah, that's a good headline. It's a good headline. So the Raiders blew another lead. That's the story of the year for them. They get beat by a guy that's never coached in the NFL, played a lot of your time. There's a lot of guys that's played in the NFL. None of them go right to head coach, you know. But lost at home to a guy that he came in on Tuesday. Think about it. He came in on Tuesday and went on the road with subpar team, subpar quarterback, but they ended up putting Matt Ryan back in. Now the Ellinger experiment is over, and beat the Raiders at home. But check out the Raiders' resume. They blow a 20-0 lead to Arizona. Blew a huge lead to Kansas City. Got off to a really good start. Same thing to Kansas City. Devontae Adams pushes down a cameraman. Blew a 17-0 lead against Jacksonville. Is one of the worst secondaries in football. Blew that one for the first time. They were shut out at the Saints. Think about this. They got shut out by the Saints this year. The same Saints team that's getting demolished on the road. You know, I understand shutting out a Tom Brady, a division foe is what I'm trying to say. Not Brady's a GOAT, but I'm just saying I understand doing that because you're familiar with them, you know. But so they're shut out by the Saints. They've blown multiple double-digit leads. And Mark Davis is pending. He's given him the dreaded vote of confidence. You know, the vote of confidence. And he says, Mark Davis, the owner there, he says, well, you know, Rome wasn't built overnight. The team is 2-7. He just simply don't want to admit he made a mistake with McDaniels. And I'm trying to see if I had a quote from him. Yeah. And a reporter for ESPN that works with the Raiders said, just talk with owner Mark Davis. People in today's world want instant gratification. The guy's coached 9 games. He's 2-7. Not the results we're looking for, but at the same time, we lost 6 games when we've had the ball with a lead. Yeah, we know that, you know. We know that. And here's a side note. Clarence Hill covers Dallas Cowboys. Going back to that Dallas games. He says Cowboys coach Mike McCarthy and Micah Carson, Dalton Schultz calling out teammates after Packers loss. There's a lot of frustrations and red bleep in the locker room. Conflict is good. I like that. Yeah. Now, and it's good they still care. It's good that they still care. But going back to the Raiders. See, he's just trying to save face. Now, you mind you, folks, that Rich, what's his name? Bisaccia? I want to call him Versace, but that's some designer, right? Bisaccia. Now, remember, he got this team in the playoffs last year. Brian says, I was a huge fan of Raiders coming into the season. They lost Hunter for most of the part of injuries. Looked better than the team last year. Yeah. And remember, Rich Bisaccia, think about everything they went through last year. They had a player who was in a horrific accident where a woman died. I forgot his name now. Either way, he's dealing with prison times. They had to cut him. They had to cut another player who was threatening people, and he got in too many off the field incidents. They had to cut him. They had their head coach saying racial remarks or whatever in the middle of the season. A huge investigation. So lose their head coach, lose two key players, one on offense, one on defense, and don't even have this world-class wide receiver on that same team. And they take the special teams coach, gets through all that turmoil, and gets them into the playoffs, beating out a really talented, high-octane LA Charger team to get into the playoffs. Now, this year, they had this all-world receiver. They picked up some players on defense, guys like Chandler Jones, and to play with Max Crosby. He's a pretty good player when you get him wound up, right? And now they're 2-7. You got Devontae Adams saying little subtitles to what's his name? Little passive-aggressive shots at his former college quarterback, and Derek Carr talking about Carr's not taking enough chances. And he's saying, I'm always going to be double teamed. I've been double teamed since I was in Green Bay. Well, Carr's not Aaron Rodgers, So you got all this, and you're getting beat double-digit. That is coaching. When you're getting up a 20-0 league against Arizona at home, that's coaching. That's second-half adjustments. That's coaching when you're getting beat in second half at Jacksonville. But Mark Davis, like a lot of owners, they've been going after Josh McDaniels for years. But think about it. McDaniels coached the greatest quarterback of all time. So did Adam Gase. He coached an all-world first ballot Hall of Fame, Peyton Manning. Now, what is Adam Gase up to, right? He got 2 jobs because he coached Peyton Manning. Josh McDaniels was a world-class fit. Once he lost the team in Denver, he lost the team in Denver. I mean, they were way off track. Of course, he was very young at the time. But Davis, like a Jim Irsay, the guy he's playing, the coach, the owner he's coaching against, or his team's playing against or whatever, this guy is just like his predecessor. It's just like the opposition. Al Davis, he's a second-generation owner, right? Al Davis, Mark Davis, Robert Irsay, Jim Irsay, they both act like they hit home runs and are born on third base. And they both don't admit they made mistakes. So it's Mike Florio with Pro Football Focus or Pro Football Talk, he's saying it's just a money thing. And I don't know what he still owes John Gruden. Supposedly, now it's 7-7. So the Commanders are making a game out of it. I thought 11.5 is a lot, though. Be careful on teams that have been dominating for a long time, and they continue to get really higher and higher and higher and higher point spreads added on, because it's hard to match that week in and week out when you're going in the NFL. Just food for thought. Anyways, I digress. So he's trying to make it look. So he's still, according to Colin Cowherd, he's the poorest owner in the league, by the way. Mark Davis is poorest owner in the league. So I don't know how much he's still paying. Remember, John Gruden had a 10-year, $100 million contract. Henry Ruggs, thank you, Pickles. 10-year, $100 million contract. It was only 4 years in, and he quit. And then he turned around and sued the NFL. So I don't know how much Mark Davis is still paying of that contract. You know, I have no idea. I know he's still got Gruden's rights because he's got 6 more years of the guy's rights, right? I guess 5 after this season. So the people that want McDaniels out, he might not be able to afford it. That's why he's saying Rome wasn't built overnight. I knew that this was I thought this would be a good ticket selling trade with Devontae Adams. I knew he was in his prime. Remember, they gave up like a first and a second round pick. This guy's over 30 years old. He's still a high level guy, but he's a receiver. He's a receiver. He's not 3 or 4 defensive players, you know. They could have drafted a receiver. Justin Jefferson for Stephon Diggs. He won that battle. You know, Minnesota, I feel like Minnesota won that battle. So basically, he's just trying to save face. You know, I'll give him at least a year or 2 for that buyout to go down. I may be wrong. He may fire him and say, you know what, let's just do the do-over. But I expect a lot of guys to get fired that people aren't expected to get fired. Cliff Kingsbury, Sean McDermott, okay, possibly Mike McCarthy, maybe McDaniels, maybe. Here's a flip side. Okay, including, and I respect Mike's opinion, Mike Westhoff, former special teams coach. Speaking of special teams, right? I was on the program. He says he really didn't like that this. He really didn't like this Jeff Saturday hiring. Speaking of high school coaches, and you got guys like Dominic Foxworth on cue, just perfectly on cue. He wants to play the race card, and this is what black coaches have to deal with. And like I said, Westhoff was felt like he got the raw end of the deal when Jimmy Johnson left, and you know, it is a relationship business, and sometimes it's politics, and a lot of times it's nepotism. So and so son's a really good coach, and all that. But the truth of the matter is, it's his team, man. You know, I get a sense that people are saying you have to hire this other guy. You should hire this person here. You should hire who was it? John Fox, who coached with the Carolina Panthers in 2003. But he was also fired by the Panthers. I want to say he's fired by the Bears. He was fired by the Denver Broncos. He has 3 strikes. He's out. And I think it was a dumb hire. It's an interim hire anyways. And guys like Jason Whitlock say he just hired him because he's kind of a figurehead. People know him. He's on national TV. But the truth of the matter is they want to tank the rest of the games, which they won, which that wasn't good. And Whitlock's saying they want to tank the rest of the games, get the number 1 pick, and actually start over and develop a quarterback with another coach. I don't know what, but the truth of the matter is it is his team. Do we have to tell people who to hire? What country do we live in here? You know, does the state tell me to hire somebody? Does the state own my team, or does Jim Irsay own the team? I don't like it. You know, I don't like what Jim Irsay. And I think Jim Irsay is a guy born on third base, thinks he hit a home run. I said that last week. Brian said he was terrible in Chicago. What do you think about coaches, quiet coaches could be fired? When I think about, there are quite a few coaches that could be. Yeah, that's true, Brian. Yeah. And Switzer's why Mike left Dallas. Barry Switzer. Okay. And yeah, he was terrible in Chicago, and he was decent. And I thought they were going to win that. I actually thought they were going to beat the Patriots in that 03 Super Bowl there, 02-03 against Carolina. So you had all these people here, and like I said last week, he don't have a plan. His plan is, how does he wake up in the morning? But we shouldn't have to tell him. And now I'll say this. Technically, I guess he could bring in a fan to coach the team every week out of Indianapolis, just for publicity stunt. You know, a random fan. You can coach a team. You can call the plays. Do that for the rest of the year, for the next 8 weeks. Now, if you do that permanently, I guess as an ownership of 31 other teams, I guess they could probably say that is purposely making this an inferior product and mocking the great game in the NFL. Could they discuss outing you for that? Possibly. But the idea of telling them who to hire, it's his team, man. It's his team. Whether he inherited it or not, I don't like him. I think he thinks he's smarter than what he is. I think he'd probably be selling newspapers on off ramp, the interstate off ramps, if it wasn't born on third base and on the Indianapolis Colts. He's not done anything. He hired Bill Polian. I guess I give him credit for that. In 1997, then 98, you get Peyton Manning. Then 2012, well, I guess, right? 2013, whatever, you get Andrew Luck. You get the right quarterbacks. You get guys from Baltimore. But, the guy, he can and my thing is people naturally want to work with people they're familiar with. That's human nature. That's why I talk more about, networking. See, I'm an introverted person. I'm a natural introvert. I don't like to go out and network. I don't even like to go to Thanksgivings with some family members I don't really know it well. Like I ought to do it this week, But I'm going to do it anyways because I know life's short and yada, yada, yada. But people, Saturday's got a good personality. He played, 10 years with them. I could see his thinking of it. But he didn't have a plan. He didn't have a plan. The guy fires his offensive coordinator. Then they bench Matt Ryan. They put this Ellinger guy in there, and they figured that the team's going to take off, I guess. And then after you bench Matt Ryan, and then you put in this second-year guy from Texas, this late draft pick, and you're still 32nd in offense, so that makes you want to fire the head coach? What are you thinking? What do you think's going to happen with a guy like Sam Ellinger? So he fires him. Then you bring this guy in. You get another clown that's over his head, and Josh McDaniels, and you beat him, and everybody's, he's 1-0. And now Jim Irsay's patting himself on the back because he beat another guy that's born on third base. So it's a mess up there. If you're a fan of these other teams, though, you got to say to yourself, well, hey, man, if you're a fan of the Titans, then I'll get into them tomorrow. They're beating teams when they're decimated with injuries. You got the Colts. The Colts still they won this week, but you got Houston lost. Jacksonville lost again. But it is what it is up there. Another big win for Tampa, by the way. That kind of getting in your rear end and hollering at people and holding yourself accountable. I got to give Tom Brady credit. He's got 2 good wins over the last 2 weeks, even though the Rams seem to be falling apart. I can't remember another team in the Rams that have won the Super Bowl has played this bad. No, not lost. I've known teams that have lost the Super Bowl that's played this bad and getting off to this kind of start, but not won when you win the Super Bowl, usually teams play well the next year, early in the season, the first half, then things start to happen, and then they start to fall apart. I digress. Tampa went over to Munich, Germany, and they had their share of injuries, played a red-hot Seattle team, and I thought Tampa would win that game. But I still had my doubts when you have a guy like a young team like that, frisky team like a Seattle with Kenneth Walker. Those 2 tackles are playing well. Cross, those young guys there with that receiving core there. And sometimes you guys know this, that Tampa Bay secondary, Todd Bowles, they can get all over the place. You can get these guys lost in translation there. and you could have a wide open DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett going the other way for a touchdown. None of that happened. I mean, they cut it close to 16, but I felt like from what I did see of that game, not much of what I did see, I felt like Tampa was in charge the whole time. And now I want to say that Tampa is starting to get a little bit of distance between them and this division. Yeah, well, not really. I mean, they got a 1-game lead, but also they have the tiebreaker. They got the tiebreaker over Atlanta. But you look at Carolina, New Orleans, both of them teams got 7 losses. And the Saints are talking about maybe bringing back Jameis Winston, and now Carolina's going to bring in Baker Mayfield. You know, and Pickle says Philly leads 14-7. Yeah, that's an interesting game. I will get on that. Pickle says, as long as the team's making money, NFL don't care. I think so. I think it would really have to be going back to the Colts debacle. Embarrassing. I do not think, since we're talking about this crazy move, everybody's asking me about it, that the Colts did doing what they did. I think if he went too far with that, I think the owners would eventually say something, you know, because other words, I do not think that this would be like the 80s with the Clippers where they would tank every year. Well, the whole league is losing money. But the Clippers under, what's his name, Donald Sterling, they were the only team making money. I do not think that the league would let it get that bad. Now, it's his team, but if you're putting an inferior product, purposely putting an inferior product, I think the other, and I want to say it's 24 owners. Remember, we talked about this. It's been brought up because Daniel Snyder, now he's wants about $8 billion, $8 or $9 billion for the Commanders now. He's trying to change his tune. Looks like he wants to sell the team now. Jeff Bezos, go figure, one of the lead to buy it. But I do think if they got too hokey, if they got too over the top, that I do believe that the old owners would say, man, you're going to have to sell this team. But as far as doing something like this, they're not going to say nothing about that. But I don't think he could do something like bring in an interim coach each game of the season for a long period of time. But I do think they could get blackouts and stuff like that. But, of course, that wouldn't happen if you got Red Zone, because Red Zone picks up on everything. They pick up everything. Keep them getting to mess around and let Brady get to the playoff. Yeah, and right, that's a good point, Brian, because Tampa, they're down. You know, or excuse me, the NFC is still down. Now, you get a healthy Tampa team. Here's the thing. There's teams that's gotten big amount of injuries early in the season. The first coaches call it the quarters. It used to be 4 quarters, right? But now you got 17 games, but you can still use a 5-quarter. You've got first quarter's the first 4 games, and you got second. So if you get a first quarter bunch of injuries, I'm talking about left tackle, sometimes quarterback, right? Look at the 72 Dolphins, but big injuries like left tackle, cornerback, pass rusher. You start to get those kind of injuries, like a Tennessee Titans. Taylor Lewan's out. Tennessee's leading there. They got a good 2.5-game lead in their division. I feel like they're doing a little load management. And I think Tampa can start to do that as well. Because now Atlanta, the way they're playing, don't be surprised, and I would do it, put Desmond Ridder in over Marcus Mariota. I know who Mariota is. I've been following the guy since 2015. That's what he is. He's consistently inconsistent. When he's not consistently inconsistent, Mariota is hurt. That's it. He's a nice guy, good family. A lot of these guys are nice guys. A lot of them are not so nice guys. But they're great football players. You know, Antonio Brown, for example, Terrell Owens. But so Tampa, they got a lot of first quarter going into second quarter injuries. Defensive guys, offensive linemen before the first quarter started, preseason. But once you get those new players in and get them acclimated and you start building confidence, you can still win a Super Bowl. Look at the 2010 Green Bay Packers. I mean, one big linebacker out there, another cornerback, left tackle. I mean, just all kinds of injuries. And every week I'm thinking this team is still getting better and better and better every week. And once the playoffs started, I said, this Green Bay team, I was talking to my dad about it. They had this guy named Jordy Nelson. Lordy, Lordy, there goes Jordy. This guy's coming out of nowhere, playing off of, I can't remember, Greg Jennings. And this quarterback has sized up his, that was Aaron Rodgers. He's got his, they lost a running back, Grant, Ryan Grant. Remember him? He got hurt that year. But they had holes all over the defense. But those new players got acclimated, and they just gotten better. It's kind of like the Titans now. They lost Harold Landry just before the season start. Buffalo game where they got destroyed. This is week 2. This is still the first quarter. Then they got Taylor Lewan in, right? They've had cornerbacks out. They've had safeties out. Elijah Molding's hurt every week. This Caleb Farley's hurt again. That's another cornerback. Christian Fulton didn't play yesterday. But that's the same thing. Look, Shaq Barrett's out for the season for Tampa. Carlton Davis, their lead corner, has been out. You've got your slot Mike Evans. When he's not hurt, he got suspended. Godwin's been out. Gage has been out. Their other receiver. Gronk retired. So as you just replace him. And by the way, did I mention Tom Brady's going through a divorce? That finally got finalized. Okay. You got a new coaching staff here. You got guys do a different job. We know Todd Bowles the head guy, but then you had to move around. You see all them moving pieces. And once you get the new pieces situated, and Brian, you're right, they could mess around and go to the Super Bowl. That was a big, because the NFC, if it's a close game and you start to get a little bit of running game, they don't have no running game either. They're worst, I think they got the worst running game in all the NFL. But Brady, he's the best at simulating a running game, better than anybody I've ever seen as far as getting the ball underneath the players, And you could see this team. I saw them build a momentum with the Baltimore game. I can't believe they made that game that close. To Baltimore's defense, a lot of respect for Baltimore's defense. Barely lost that game. Good second half comeback. The Rams needed that game bad. Rams beat them 3 straight, had them beat. They come back and beat the Rams. Healthy, surging Seattle team. Beat them in another country. And now they've got a lot of game and a half in the South. They get that home game. You get hot at the right time. This is one of those off years where a team like a 9-8 team could win the Super Bowl, like the Giants did in 2007, 2008. This feels like an off-year election. It just feels that way. I've wrote Tennessee off, and now they're back in. I wrote Tampa off, now they're back in. You get a home game, you can build off that momentum. You never know what another team could do. And Colin Cowherd made this point the other day. But watch out for teams that have too much success early. Look how young Philadelphia is. They could be overwhelmingly favorites in the playoffs and get put out in the divisional round. They got a very young coach. They got a third-year quarterback. They got a veteran line and stuff. But, you get that heavy fan base there. You start to feel the pressure that burst. If you go up there with a vet like a Tom Brady that's been here 1,000 times, you get a Grizzly Tampa Bay team come up there, you're 17-point favorites, and you get an early turnover, and the game's 7-3, and you score early because you're coming off your bye week. I could see that. I could see it playing out where it's down to the last shot, last possession, and Brady come back and beat you and crush you. I mean, it happens all the time. Colin K said it happens in every single sport where major favorites come out and then they just get upset in the first round, you know. And Brian says it feels like anybody's game. Yeah, it is. It does. When you got teams like Tampa or Minnesota doing what they're doing, Tampa Bay, Buffalo's vulnerable. I mean, Denver lost. They could get hot. I don't think they would. This Charger team, look at all the injuries. Lost their quarterback. They lost defensive players, the 49ers. And then they go out and still make a big trade and still go out and get Christian McCaffrey. That's my preseason team, Buffalo and San Francisco. Well, San Francisco's got a pass rush. I know they got injuries on the back end. They also got a really good running game. And the Debo and then Ayuk, you know, they're only going to get better. And that could be their time. So I don't think that still suspended Kyrie Irving will not return against the Kings. Yeah. So anyways, you guys like the show, share the show. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll finish up in the NFL. I'll give you my Power 5. I did a lot of switching around there. We'll go over any breaking news, talk a little college. Steve Sarkisian, man, I don't know. I don't know about that guy in Texas, man. I don't know if he's going to make it. We'll go over a little bit of that, go over the playoff here. Make sure and tune in 7 p.m. Central Time here on SportsScope. Pickle says, before I get off, I hope I never see Brady in another Super Bowl. That's funny. Thanks, guys.